The Hope Diamond, one of the most beautiful, coveted gemstones in the world, is rumored to come with a terrible curse. Where did this legend start? Is there any truth, or are the stories of the diamond's misfortune as artificially inflated as the diamond market itself? Today, we're going to take a closer look at the facets of the infamous blue jewel and investigate the curse of the Hope Diamond. In the 17th century, an enormous blue diamond, over 60 carats bigger than the Hope Diamond is today, was discovered in a mine in India. In 1631, Jean-Baptiste Taverny, a French merchant specializing in gemstones, made his first trip to India. Though the specifics are unclear, he eventually got his hands on the legendary diamond, at the time known as the Taverny Blue. One of the legends says that the diamond was once part of a statue of a Hindu goddess, embedded in her head before it was stolen. Some versions say the story says Taverny himself stole it, while others claim someone else stole it before selling it to Taverny. Either way, it's this initial theft that's said to have brought the curse onto the stone and anyone who owned it. However he got his hands on it, Taverny took the stone back to France and sold it to King Louis XIV, where it became the first recorded blue diamond in Europe. 5 years later, King Louis had the diamond cut to 67 1/8 carats and wore it on a ribbon around his neck. It was given the new moniker French Blue. As for the curse, it supposedly began to manifest itself with Taverny himself, kicking off a series of unfortunate events that would befall anyone who owned or wore the diamond. It should be noted that many of these events are unsubstantiated, coming from sensationalist writings that neglect to cite their sources. But listed back to back, they do paint a compelling picture of a cursed gem. First, there was Taverny, who was supposedly stricken with a terrible fever after getting hold of the gem. Then, as the story goes, on his final trip to India, he was viciously torn apart by a pack of wolves or wild dogs. Next, there was King Louis XIV, the first to recut the gem. He died of gangrene, and all his legitimate children died in their youth except for one. Nicolas Fouquier, who worked for King Louis and guarded the French crown jewels, was said to have worn the diamond on one special occasion. Soon after, he lost the favor of the king, was banished from France, and then had his sentence changed to life in prison. He spent 15 years locked up in the fortress of Pignerol. The diamond wasn't through with French royalty yet. It passed to Louis XVI, where it was worn by him and supposedly Marie Antoinette as well. As for their fates, well, we all know what happened there. They lost their heads to the guillotine in the French Revolution. Marie-Louise, Princess de Lamballe, a friend of Marie Antoinette's, was also said to have worn the diamond at one time. She was met with a particularly gruesome fate, killed by a mob who hit her with a hammer, decapitated, disemboweled her, and impaled her head on a pike. The jewel disappeared for a time, stolen during the French Revolution. It resurfaced in the hands of Wilhelm Falls. Wilhelm's son Hendrik murdered him and stole the stone before killing himself. The next to own the stone was Francis Beaulieu, who sold the stone and then died. George IV bought the recut stone next, then died in terrible debt. Other owners included Simon Monthery, who bought and sold the diamond before diving over a cliff along with his wife and child, and Sultan Abdul Hamid II, who lost the Ottoman Empire in an army revolt. Murder, suicide, imprisonment, torture, death, and despair followed the diamond from person to person throughout the years. So, why is it called the Hope Diamond when it seems to be connected to so much hopelessness? Well, it actually got its name from Henry Philip Hope, one of the heirs to the banking firm Hope & Co., who owned the blue gemstone before his death in 1839. In his will, he left the diamond to the oldest one of his nephews, Henry Thomas Hope. The diamond remained in the family after Henry Thomas's death, when it passed to his widow, then to her grandson, Lord Francis Hope. Francis Hope had enormous debts due to his spending and gambling habits and asked permission to sell the diamond in 1898. The request was denied and was denied again in 1899. In 1901, he was given permission to sell the diamond. In 1910, the Hope Diamond was purchased by one of the biggest names in jewelry, Pierre Cartier, grandson of Louis-François Cartier. It was a risky investment, a jewel so large and expensive that a failure to sell it could seriously damage both the family business and the family name. There were those who believed the gem's curse extended to the jewelry dealers hoping to sell it, and papers in 1908 published the warning. There are those who say they will never regain their old position of supremacy in their trade as long as the Hope Diamond remains in their ownership. They, in this case, referred to the diamond dealers. But nevertheless, he saw the risk as worth it, and only a few months after Cartier opened his New York branch, the company purchased the diamond for 500,000 francs, the equivalent of around $2.2 million today. Once Cartier had purchased the diamond, there was the matter of finding the perfect client to buy it. Someone with a combination of outrageous funds and a fiendish penchant for jewels. and Pierre Cartier had just the person in mind. Evelyn Walsh McLean, an American heiress with family money made in gold mines, married Ned McLean of the Washington Post family in 1908. They quickly established a reputation for reckless spending, and Evelyn in particular was known for an obsession with fine jewelry. Evelyn once said of her love for jewelry, "It's no use to anyone to chide me for loving jewels. I cannot help it if I have a passion for them. They make me feel comfortable and even happy. The truth is, when I neglect to wear jewels, astute members of my family call in doctors because it's a sign I'm becoming ill." So when Evelyn and her husband were in the French capital, Pierre arranged to meet with them, hoping to entice Evelyn with his new risky acquisition. He placed a package sealed with wax in front of the couple and walked them through the gemstone's lurid history, from the French court to the British royals to the Turkish sultan. However, the sales pitch failed, and they did not purchase the stone. Cartier refused to give up, though, shipping the gem to America and setting it in a frame of smaller diamonds. Evelyn was intrigued but still uncertain. Cartier advised her to hold on to it for a few days and then see how she felt. Though she didn't yet know it, the diamond officially had its grip on her. As she went to bed that night, she could not get the diamond out of her head. For hours, that jewel stared at me, and at some time during the night, I began to really want the thing. Then I put the chain around my neck and hooked my life to its destiny for good or evil. The very next day, the McLeans agreed to buy the diamond for the contemporary equivalent of $5 million. But the sale wasn't completed so easily. Evelyn delayed payment for 2 months, and at one point even attempted to send the gemstone back, before a lawsuit from Cartier forced her hand. She agreed to buy the diamond, but only if she could take it to church for a blessing. She didn't exactly believe in the curse, but after May Yohei, a previous wearer of the diamond, warned her about it in a 1911 newspaper article, the notion of a cursed jewel got under her skin. The diamond was laid out on a velvet cushion in the church of Russell Monsignor. Just as it was about to be blessed, there was supposedly a sudden crack of thunder and a flash of lightning, as if the heavens themselves were warning against it. But Evelyn was already in too deep, and she concluded the sale in early 1912. Though the sale was a boon for Cartier's reputation, it was a financial loss after all the legal fees. However, the gossip columns ran wild with the story of the sale, the McLean family's involvement, and the mysterious curse, and Cartier became a New York household name. As for Evelyn Walsh McLean, she began wearing the diamond frequently. In February of 1912, she wore the gem in public for the first time at a reception at the Walsh Mansion. She doted on the gem, wearing it in portraits and social events. She would sometimes let her Great Dane dog wear the diamond, and though she never let her friends touch it, she would play games at her parties where she would hide the diamond in the garden and have her friends search for it, like the world's most expensive Easter egg hunt. Evelyn wrote about the diamond's curse in her memoir. "Do I believe a lot of silly superstitions, legends of the diamond? I must confess I know better, and yet, knowing better, I believe. By that I mean I never let my friends or children touch it. Call it a foolish woman's fetish if you like. After you've said so without contradiction, let me say that I have come to feel, not think, that I have developed a sort of immunity to its evil. What tragedies have befallen me might have occurred had I never seen or touched the diamond. I have sense enough to know that fortune tellers gain fame as prophets by habitually predicting probabilities. My observations have persuaded me that tragedies, for anyone who lives, are not escapable." She spoke of the tragedies in that entry, and her life was sadly filled with plenty of them. In May of 1919, 7 years after they purchased the diamond, Ned and Evelyn's elder son was killed when he ran into the street and was struck by a passing car. They experienced strife outside of their personal lives as well, when Ned McLean became involved with the Teapot Dome scandal, in which his friend Albert B. Fall, Secretary of the Interior, was caught accepting bribes from oil tycoons in exchange for permitting them to drill on reserve lands. The tumultuous times didn't end there either. Ned and Evelyn both struggled with substance abuse issues and addictions to both alcohol and drugs. Ned had an affair, leading Evelyn to end the marriage in 1930. Ned's behavior became more and more erratic and reckless, culminating in him selling the Washington Post to trustees, going bankrupt, and being declared insane in court. He died penniless in Shepherd Pratt, a Maryland psychiatric hospital, in 1941. In spite of people attributing Evelyn's misfortune to the Hope Diamond, she continued to wear it until the darkest days of the Great Depression forced her to pawn it in order to make a mortgage payment. This separation was only temporary, and she soon returned to reclaim the diamond, stuffing it into her dress and heading uptown to meet some friends. In the autumn of 1946, Evelyn's daughter was found dead in her bedroom at Evelyn's home in Washington. In April 1947, Evelyn died of pneumonia at the age of 60, and she and the Hope Diamond were parted for good. When the Hope Diamond went on sale again in 1949, it was purchased by famous New York jeweler Harry Winston. In 1958, Winston donated the diamond to the Smithsonian Institute as part of a new gem collection. On November 10, 1958, the Hope Diamond was mailed in a plain brown box and arrived at the Smithsonian. The employees of the Smithsonian were thrilled, but others were less enthusiastic. Newspapers at the time ran stories suggesting that the acquisition of a cursed stone by a federal institution would bring misfortune to the country. This panic was only bolstered by stories that James Todd, the man who delivered the Hope Diamond to the museum, was a victim of the curse as well. Within a year of delivering the stone, Todd was involved in 2 different car accidents, which left him with a crushed leg and a head wound. Also in the same year, his wife died of a heart attack. His dog was strangled on his leash, and his home was partially destroyed by a fire. The Washington Post reached out to Todd to ask if he believed the diamond was responsible for his bad fortune, and he responded, "I don't believe any of that stuff. Perhaps I'm actually having good luck. Thank God all 4 children were outside instead of in those rooms." Todd added a thought, "If the hex is supposed to affect the owners, then the public should be having the bad luck." But in spite of naysayers and persistent rumors of the curse, the diamond was placed on display at the National Museum of Natural History, where it remains to this day as part of the National Gem and Mineral Collection. Though it's arguably the most famous, the Hope Diamond is not the only glittering gem with a reputation for bringing misfortune to those who own it. The Sancy, a pale yellow diamond once owned by royalty, was named for one of its owners, Nicolas de Harlay, Seigneur de Sancy. Before his ownership, 3 of its owners, Duke of Burgundy Charles the Bold, England's King Charles I, and France's Louis XVI, died horribly after the stone came into their possession. In the 1600s, when Sancy's servant was transporting the diamond to its next owner, King James I, he was attacked by a group of robbers. Afraid to let the diamond fall into their hands, he swallowed the stone to protect it. Unfortunately, that didn't protect him, and he was murdered. The intact diamond was later discovered inside of his corpse's stomach. The diamond has disappeared and reappeared time and time again throughout the centuries. King James I did get his hands on it, but he wound up selling it to the French royal family. During the French Revolution, it was stolen, reappearing in the possession of a Russian prince before vanishing again. In 1906, William Waldorf Astor purchased it as a wedding gift for Lady Astor, who wore it in a tiara. In 1978, the Sancy was sold to the Louvre for $1 million, and it remains there. For now. Now, that isn't a threat to commit an elaborate diamond heist, don't worry. But given the jewel's contentious history, who knows where it'll disappear and reappear next. Another infamously cursed diamond is the Black Orlov, also called the Eye of Brahma diamond. This 67.5-carat black diamond is rumored to have once served as the eye of a 19th century Hindu statue of the deity Brahma. When the eye was stolen from the statue, the legend goes, the thief was murdered and the curse began. After decades in obscurity, the diamond resurfaced when the jewelry dealer J.W. Paris purchased it in 1932. One of the diamond's owners, Princess Nadia Orlov, fell to her death. Strangely, another one of the diamond owners died the same way. Charles F. Winston purchased the Black Orlov in 1950 and had it recut. The diamond was spotted again at a Christie's auction in 2006, where it hopefully sold to an owner with better luck. One of the most well-known cursed diamonds is also one of the crown jewels of England, resting in a place of prominence on the imperial crown. The Koh-i-Noor was once the property of a series of Maharajas, each holding power for only a short while. The stone first earned its reputation while it was in the hands of Shah Jahan, the Mughal ruler who built the Taj Mahal. The 186-carat diamond was placed into his throne, but shortly after he was overthrown by his own son and thrown into prison. 1 century later, it received its name from Nadir Shah, a Persian commander who conquered the region and obtained the diamond, giving it a title that translates to Mountain of Light. Another century later, British colonization brought the diamond into the British Empire, and in 1911 it was set in the imperial crown. This is thought to have been a deliberate choice intended to circumvent the diamond's curse, said to only be fatal to men who wear it. In the 18th century, an Indian slave supposedly discovered the Regent diamond and decided to smuggle it away inside a wound in his leg. An English commodore promised to help him get the diamond out of India, but instead he betrayed the man, killing him and taking the stone for himself. It made its way to the French regent Philippe II of Orléans, for whom the diamond is named. It disappeared during the Revolution but reappeared in quite a notable place, on Napoleon I's sword. But it didn't bring him good fortune, and after losing the Battle of Waterloo, he was exiled to a small island where he lived until his death at age 51. The Koh-i-Noor isn't the only diamond with specifications built into its curse. Legend has it that the Moon of Baroda diamond can bring misfortune to its owner, but only after crossing the sea or the ocean. The striking yellow diamond was first discovered around 500 years ago in India, where it was held by the Gayakavads of Baroda, a royal dynasty who ruled over much of the western part of India for centuries. In the mid-1700s, it was owned by Empress Marie Theresa of Austria for a brief time before her death. After she died, it was returned to its original owners, and many whispered that the death was caused by the cursed diamond crossing the sea to Europe. In 1953, the Moon of Baroda was purchased by Meyer Rosenbaum of Meyer Jewelry Company. He placed the diamond on a leather cord and offered it as a gift to none other than Marilyn Monroe for her to wear while filming Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. She made the diamond and herself famous, but she also faced a great deal of strife in her personal and professional life. This could of course just be due to the wild ups and downs of fame and the fickle nature of stardom, but some chose to attribute at least some of her struggles to the diamond's curse. It seems like almost every famous diamond comes with some kind of curse attached, if the stories are to be believed. But when it all comes to the curse of the Hope Diamond, it turns out that there may not actually be a curse at all. Smithsonian Museum curator Jeffrey Post has debunked several of the stories often used as evidence of the curse. Jean-Baptiste Taverny, for example, was not in fact ripped apart by a pack of dogs in India. In fact, he made a fortune selling diamonds to French royalty, then moved to Russia where he died at the ripe old age of 84. As for Marie Antoinette, she never likely wore the diamond herself. It was placed in a piece and only worn by the king and only on special ceremonial occasions. So if there's so little evidence for the curse, where did it come from? Most likely, rumors were spread by Cartier in order to boost the profile of his acquisition. It makes for a compelling story, one that has caused strangers to write dozens of letters to the Smithsonian over the years, attributing anything and everything that goes on in the United States to the nation's ownership of the Hope Diamond. Whether or not you believe in curses, it's impossible to deny the impact the Hope Diamond and its supposed curse have had on the world. Once a story has taken on a life of its own, it can be very difficult to stop it from spreading, growing, and changing. It becomes an independent entity, one that can outlive anyone responsible for starting or spreading it in the first place. Just like the dazzling blue jewel itself, the legend of the Hope Diamond's curse will likely last for centuries to come. Diamonds are forever, and so are stories.